and welcome to episode 5 of The Dowagers. I am Sharon Smith, and I am joined with...
Hi, I'm Cynthia and Sharon, and we are here today. We're going to be touching on a subject. We're actually going to have 2 parts to this podcast, so you can listen to part 1. It'll be up hopefully this week sometime, and then part 2 you'll get in 2 weeks. But we're going to be touching on a subject that's advice for others on how to support a widow when she loses her spouse, or a widower when he loses his wife. And so with that said, I'd like to give a little bit of a warning. Those trigger warnings, right, Sharon?
Oh, yeah.
The warning that I'd like to give is Sharon and I are going to be covering some subjects in this podcast. And we might have friends and family that listen to this podcast, and they might feel, or they might know, that they were the ones that said or did a certain thing to us or another widow during that time. If that is the case, please know that this warning is, do not take this personally. I want everybody to keep in mind that when Sharon and I share our experiences of what we've been through and are still walking through, because we are still very early on in our stages, what we say and what we do as a widow in the deepest pain and the deepest grief we've ever been in is coming from that, a place of deep grief and deep pain. And so that's the warning that I have, that if you hear something and it really is like you feel hurt or offended by it, please do not. Because we've worked through these things, and we know that sometimes we speak out of our pain and our grief, and other people just sometimes don't know how to handle that. And so there can be hard feelings sometimes. So just know that if you hear something, don't take it personally. Just take it and use it to help somebody else. That's really what this episode is about.
Absolutely. So, yeah. We're not trying to call anybody out.
No.
But I think the most feedback that we've gotten from people is that what we're saying has really, really helped people. And it's like, that's how I was feeling. Or so we're just going to keep doing that, because we're real. We're still going through the battle, like you said, and trying to get to the other side. And we're just, it's one widow, or, one widow to another widow. We don't want to leave out the widowers, but you get it. And we're just sitting across the kitchen table having coffee, and we're talking about what's real, what's going on in our life. So yes, absolutely. And knowing that this is the worst pain that is imaginable. Yeah. And some of us just got thrown into it, and our lives were completely changed immediately, forever.
And that's part of the bond, Sharon, you and I share together, is really, to be honest with you, I really believe every widow's experience, or widower's experience for that matter. The only reason we speak to widows is because that's what we are as dowagers. I always want to remind ourselves, we are widows, but we are widows of the King of Kings. But one thing is each person becomes a widow differently. Their experience is different in how it happens. It just so happens that we are in a time right now in our country, in America, or actually in the world, where a lot of us widows, things happen to us at the same time. So we have a lot of similarities, and we can absolutely bond over those similarities. But each widow goes through their loss differently because of circumstances that surrounded it. Because I've even had widows that have become widows, and their spouse had been sick for years and years and years and years.
Right.
And it becomes something of, they finally received their heavenly body that they suffered so long in their earthly body. But at the same point in time, those same widows, whether it happened like you or I, fast, or whether it happens in a long period of time, people can be very insensitive.
Yes.
And people don't know, I will say this, people don't know how to handle death.
Yeah.
People do not handle death well. I don't know if it's more so in our Western culture than it is in other cultures. I know the United States of America, the Western culture, do not handle death well. And so when somebody loses a spouse, there's certain phrases and certain things that people say or people do. I know one of those phrases that I'm going to touch on later is, if you need anything, let me know. Can you think of anything else that's like a phrase that we throw out there sometimes for a widow or a widower?
Yeah, definitely. And this happened many times to me. You would run into somebody, and they would, love on you. They'd hug you. They'd, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I'm so sorry. And then we're going to get together for lunch. We're going to get together for lunch. I want to take you out to lunch and we'll sit and talk, because you may at that point be with somebody else, or, or someplace where it's not, you're not going to do it right now. I know it's more than two hands that this has happened to me in the last year and a half. And they never call.
Yeah.
And your answer is, when they say that to you, you're like, that would be wonderful. I would love that. Call me.
Yeah.
They never call. Now, I'm sure they meant it at that moment, but then whatever.
The follow through's not there.
It's not there. And we sit and wait for that, because we want that. It's not that, we're like, oh God, I don't want to go out to lunch with another person and talk about this. That's not the case. It's like, I could probably name the people that, that happened, that, that said that. And again, we're not calling anybody out because you did something wrong. And because, you know what, quite honestly, I'm sure in my 64 years of life, I probably have said that same thing.
Oh, absolutely. I know I have. I'm the first to admit that when somebody else has gone through some of these things, I've said these very phrases that we are now sharing with people what not to say.
Yeah.
And the whole thing of it is even though we've been in that place where we've said it and we see how much it hurts, I've actually gone back to some widows and have apologized to them for, I cannot believe that I said, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me for, ever saying that, because I didn't realize how deep it cuts and how hard it hurts. Because when somebody's experiencing the deepest grief of their life, and then somebody says, let's do lunch, and they don't call back, it's rejection. It's sheer and utter. When we've just had the biggest rejection of our lives, and we didn't ask for it.
No.
And our spouses, it wasn't their fault.
No.
But death is a rejection of a life being taken from you. You've been rejected from having future dreams. The enemy has brought rejection into your life, that things that you had hoped for and dreamed for are gone.
Yes.
And I think that is why when people don't follow through, when the follow through is not there, when they say things to widows, I think that's when it just hurts. It just hurts so bad that it amplifies the rejection.
Yeah, that is exactly it. It feels like rejection. And then what happens is, now you feel rejected, you're hurt beyond words, and now you don't trust.
Yeah.
Because the next time somebody says it to you, after this has happened numerous times, the next time someone says it, you're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, call me. And because they're not going to. And that's not everybody,
No.
But the ones that that did that, or didn't follow through. And yeah, I know, death is pretty scary for a lot of people, and they don't know, maybe at the time, just maybe at the time when they say that, and they're like, oh, but what will I do with her? What if she cries? What if she, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. And you make such a great point. What if she cries? Sure. If we're going to give advice today on how to support widows in the nitty gritty, if she cries, let her cry with her.
Yeah.
Just sit. Just listen. I mean, this part one is more of practical helps. And you're not going to catch it. It's not, well, I said, like, everybody is going to end up in this place. I said that in another podcast. At some point, you're going to be on one end or the other of this if you are married.
Right.
So if you are married, there is a point where you are going to be on one end or the other of this.
Correct.
This is why you need to understand how to handle it now, but you aren't going to catch it if you sit with that woman.
No.
And on the flip side of this, I'll be the first to admit, it's the things like that rejection, that, hey, let's go to lunch and no calls, or hey, let me know if you need anything. If you need anything, let me know. Those kinds of things are what cause bitterness then in the heart of us as widows. And that's the ownership that on our side we have to take, because I don't want to throw everybody here, under the bus in a sense. But on the flip side of that, that is on our end where that bitter old widow, the phrase bitter old widow, that's where it comes in.
Yes. Oh my God.
Because they get rejection on top of rejection on top of rejection on top of rejection. And I think if we did death better in our Western culture, I think we would have more people who felt supported, because bitterness comes from a lack of support, and the lack of support comes from the lack of follow through. And so that's why this advice that we're giving to others on this particular episode is so important.
Yes. So you are so right on that. Because, can't you just picture in your mind, there's a house down at the end of the street, and it's like, oh, that's that lady. That's that lady. She's mean, and because you could get like that, because it's like, especially if you don't have a really good support network.
Yes. The people who had very few people in their lives get there a lot quicker than people who have family or friends in their lives.
Absolutely.
It's hard.
Yep.
It's so hard.
Yep.
It's gut-wrenching hard. But that is where that comes from. It comes from that place of, oh, don't talk to her. Wasn't there a movie just made about that?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. A Man Named Otto.
That's right. There was.
I went to see it. Just saying. I didn't know anything about it. My friend said, you want to go to a movie? Yeah, let's go see. I cried through the whole thing. So warning, don't go to see that unless you really think you can handle that, because that touched a very big nerve for me. But yes, he was a bitter old man. And
there's a bitter old widower.
Yes, because he was, a bitter old widower, yes. But he was so sad.
Yeah.
And people let him down. And that's hard.
And people have to understand that sometimes the advice for others is, sometimes the person and the people who have just lost that, sometimes they don't even understand what they're saying out of their own mouth. That's why you can't take things personally. But at the same point in time, that's why you have to follow through. Because even though I might not remember everything I said after Eric died, which I know I don't, because people have said to me, oh, that, that, but remember that. But on the flip side, that we remember every rejection, because that's what we're sitting in the moment, is the rejection. I can't help but think of Job in the Bible, when he lost everything and he lost all his kids and everything like that. He didn't lose his wife, but he sat in a pile of ash and started throwing ashes on his head. And that was something they did in their culture. And there have been times where I said, that's sometimes what I feel like I want to do.
Yeah, right.
As a widow, the rejection is so great. The loss is so great that I just feel like I just want to sit and dump ashes on my head. I mean, even to the point where, like, a week after Eric passed, my freezer died and I lost everything in my deep freeze.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anybody to call.
Right.
But I called.
That was Eric's job.
Yes. And see, that's the other part. So I ended up calling a friend of mine, and bless their heart. See, you want to talk about practical help? They had a brand new freezer delivered to my house, did not ask for anything. They did it all on their own. called me up saying, a freezer's coming on this day. Will you be home? Making sure I was going to be there, because if I wasn't, they were going to come. And I'm like, yes, I'll be here. And I'm like, what do I do? And they're like, don't worry about it.
Yep.
You know, we got it taken care of. Now, you want to talk about practical helps? You want to be a help to a widow? Tell her when she needs something, but then be there when she calls. I want to read something, Sharon, real quick. And I read this to you before. So soon after Eric passed away, I just noticed there was a phrase that was spoken in my life quite a bit.
Yep.
And we all know what that phrase is. And the sad part about it is it's all too often it's too real. But the phrase is, if you need anything, let me know. And so I wrote this little thing, and then from this, I want to talk about this particular phrase, because I know you and I have a lot to say about this phrase, because it is said to us how many times, like umpteen times.
Yep.
Is anybody else tired of playing the if you need anything, let me know game? I liken it to a one-on-one basketball game. They walk up to me when they see me and say, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm here for you. Then they hand me the ball and say, if you need anything, let me know. Then they walk off the court and stop playing. So I'm left holding the ball. Now fast forward a few weeks and I actually need to play the game. So I'm not unreasonable. I call up and say, hey, I need such and such. Not $1 million, not a new house. A reasonable request along the lines of help cleaning my house, getting ready for my husband's memorial service. Could you get me a few groceries? Can you bring dinner tonight? Can you just come sit with me? Or even something they specifically said they would like to do for me during this time. They turned me down every time with excuses like, sorry, I can't help. My life is just too busy. I'm going on vacation and that's too hard to do. They can even choose when. I'm just letting them know I'm ready to play the game. In the case of my husband's memorial, I asked a month and a half in advance because they specifically said, we want to do this for Eric's service. They agree. And then 3 weeks before his service, they told me they decided they were too busy that week, but they'll be at the service. So I take the ball back and I stand on the court of this game called grief as they walk away to continue playing their own game called life as usual. So I decided to ask someone else that told me they'd like to play the if you need anything, let me know game, only to get another excuse as to why they can't play that game because they are playing life as usual and can't fulfill that need. They don't even try to get other players they might know or even start a new game called I can't do that, but I can do this. Would that help? So as I stand on the court of grief, being left holding the ball, I realize when someone says, if you need anything, let me know, they are only saying that so they can feel good about themselves because it is the right or acceptable thing to say. They never intended to play if you need anything, let me know game because they just wanted to get back to playing their life as usual game. I no longer get to play life as usual because my husband of 31 and a half years died. I'm standing on the court of grief, being left holding the ball I was handed for needs that will be never be met by people who called themselves friends, who walked off the court and didn't look back.
Oh my goodness, that hits right to the heart because that's it. That's it. Oh my goodness. You wrote that?
I did.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's beautiful it's ugly in a beautiful how do I say it? It's beautiful in an ugly way. I don't know.
Well,
but it's
when
so
the Lord showed me that scenario, he said it's like it's like you're playing basketball, and I was like, oh my word, that's totally what it is. Yeah. They've given me a ball for a game I didn't want to play, and yet I'm supposed to call all the shots, but I'm standing there because I don't want to play.
Right. Right.
I don't want to play this game called grief.
No.
And I don't want to be responsible for the ball.
Right. Right.
So you take the ball.
Yeah.
You know, and I will say that phrase is probably the most hurtful phrase to all widows across the whole board.
Yeah.
Um,
I couldn't agree with you more. I could not agree with you more.
and I caught myself starting to say those words, and I stopped myself.
Yep. Yep.
And I've started asking for specific things. Can I bring you dinner on this night at this time? Can I come sit with you on this night at this time? And that's sometimes not even for a widow, but for other things. I really tried to stop using that phrase altogether because it really is here's the ball. I'm done playing. I need to go back to life as usual.
Right. 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 Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You could not be more right on this. It could not be. And then it's like then when you okay, all right, okay, I got the ball. So then you go ahead and you ask them, and then they can't. They can't. I mean, I'm gonna, I'm gonna say this happened to me pretty early on. Friends said, if you need, because everyone said, if they know I like to walk. If you want to walk, I'll go walking with you. I'll go walking with you. The first time that I finally got enough courage and dug myself out of that hole to peek out and say, okay, I want to go for a walk. Can we go for a walk? I can't. I didn't ask anybody for a very, very long time. It crushed me, and quite honestly, it still crushes me because I think you were my friend. Why did you do this? And then just kind of push me away.
And what's so amazing about it is there is so much of this that goes on that the other people don't even realize the rejection that it does. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know who I'm speaking to right now, but that hurts. You want advice for our widows and widowers? Do not use that phrase.
Yeah.
If you are going to play the game of grief with them, then get in there and get dirty and sweaty and play the game of grief. But don't hand them the ball and walk off and go play life as usual.
Right.
Not saying that you don't get your life, but don't give them the ball.
Right. No.
Be the player. Because I will say, isn't that, right there is the crux of then you don't want to call anybody.
Nope.
And your courage has just plummeted. And it takes courage for us to say, hey, I need help.
Oh my gosh,
yes. And then it plummets, and then we're like, forget it. And then that bitterness can start to set in because that's the enemy's tool in our life is that bitterness. He wants us to be bitter old widows, angry old widows.
Yeah.
Or widowers.
Yeah. Ugly, nasty, those with the black all, and they walk down the street. Yes, that's what he wants. He would not, and he would be so happy if that's how we look.
I know.
And no, we're not going to.
No, and we're going to give you guys the warning.
Yes.
No, don't play this game with people. Don't play that. If you need anything, let me know game.
Right. And if you know what, if it is too hard for you to do anything, if it really is, if it's just too hard for you for whatever reason, then just give us a hug.
Yes. Yes.
And leave it at that. Don't make empty promises. Don't give us the ball.
Yes.
We don't want to play. We got enough.
If you want to sit with me, just come sit with me. Just come sit at my house with me. Don't or call me up. It's so funny because I've known about widows for a really long time that there's a lot of rejection that happens with them. And because of that, I've got a real practical help that'll hopefully help a lot of you. Is I had a friend of mine who lost her husband just a year before Eric. And I also had a friend who lost her husband. It was 5 years in December. But when these women lost their spouses, the Lord specifically told me that I was to check on the one on a weekly basis. There was not a week that went by that I was not with her or doing something with her. That's playing the game. The other one, the flip side of that was the other widow. She was like to be left alone a little bit more, but as much as you might think widows like to be left alone, they don't.
Right.
And so I put in my phone, this is a practical, put in a reminder in your phone to call so-and-so, to call Sharon Smith, to call Cynthia and Sharon, to check up on them. Any widows or widowers that you know in your life, put in your phone a reminder to call them. And then when you do that, and it comes up, play the game at that moment where you get in there and you actually put to practice, hey, and it's so funny because a year into it, after I lost Eric, she came over and spent some time with me. Mm. And I thought this person would have had tons of people around her. And she said there was only me and one other person in her life that checked on her on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. Everybody thinks that somebody else. You're just they've said this to me. You probably got so many people that, are calling you and coming over and bringing you stuff, and it's like for the first couple weeks, and then it just stops. So it's like if you're gonna, and that's the other thing. Don't do this for 2 weeks. And then, okay, this is our life now.
Yeah. They don't need it. It's not like a cut on your finger that it gets cut and you put a Band-Aid on it and it heals after a few days and then you're good to go. It's not like that. They're going to need you in 6 weeks, in 6 months, in 6 years.
Yeah. Because there's
the way to put that into action.
There's all kinds of things that come up in our life. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And in order to put that in action, there's nothing, we have these digital devices that we never use to our benefit. You want to use it to your benefit. Use it to connect with a widow by reaching out to her every 6 weeks if you know of one.
Yeah.
I have another widow friend of mine. Since Eric passed, she sends me a scripture verse every morning. I wasn't even close to this person, but she's a widow. Her husband was 56 when he passed away several years ago. But she sends me a scripture every single morning for the last, Eric's been gone 1.5 years now. She sends it to me every morning. I don't talk to her on a regular basis. I don't go to lunch with her. I don't see her. But ever since this happened, all she does is text me. And I tell her, thank you so much. You want to talk about practical? That's practical.
Yeah. Well, and as you said this, I have a client when I lived in Wisconsin and I owned my salon. I have a client that sends me a card for every holiday. We don't talk, but but mark my words, it'll be here. It just
I'm closer to her because of just that action.
Oh my gosh, I am so appreciative to that. Yeah. And in the beginning, she, made reference to things about Jeff and now it's a little bit different, but yes, every single holiday. And I'm sure, because I got one for Valentine's Day, I'm sure St. Patty's Day is coming and I will get a card from her and a cute little note in there. And I couldn't be more appreciative of that because I know somebody's thinking about me. Somebody doesn't see me on a regular basis. I may never see her in person again.
Right. So that wraps up our practical side today. And so we hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of if you need anything, let me know, game advice for helping widows in the beginning, practical advice. So I'm Cynthia Schrock.
And I'm Sharon Smith. And don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. We can help more people.
That's right. And join us in 2 weeks for part 2 of advice for helping widows.
All right.
Bye-bye.